So today I'm revealing 3 underlying reasons your core is not working. It's not turning on, it's not getting stronger. And by core, today I mean your abdominals. So the abs are incredibly important for your spine health. So the most common thing that I'll see when there's a weak core involved is low back pain. And this low back pain will come and go. And over time, it comes more frequently and it stays for longer. But that's the main indication that you have core weakness. A lot of people won't know that their core is weak until, they either get an assessment or they start having pain. But the abs are also really incredibly important for the rest of our body too, because where our abs are is where the center of mass of our body is. So if you think about a globe and the way a globe spins around an axis, if we are to shift that axis forward, the globe is a little lopsided, right? So we want our center of mass or our abdominals to be turned on and activated when we are doing our exercises and our activities so that we're rotating and moving around that nice axis. So if you're someone that does activities, you're going to want to get on top of this so that you can make your body resilient during those activities, and especially if you're trying to prevent injuries. I'm Dr. G, the PT, and I make programs to make your body work better so that you can do the activities you love with freedom in your body, feeling good in your body while you're doing the fun thing. So the topic of core and the underlying reasons that it's not working came up this week in one of my coaching sessions. And it's because I'm working with a pickleball athlete and their core is weak. And the underlying reason is one of the more unusual ones. But once we uncovered how they should be strengthening their core, the ways they can activate those muscles, they started to feel the abdominals and were able to recognize that they did have weak abdominals because they didn't know. A lot of times we won't know because we're so good at compensating. And when we push ourselves past the limit of fatigue, then these other muscles turn on and compensate. And after a while, our body programs our movements with those compensation patterns instead of the ones that would really efficiently make us move in a better, more healthy way. It's the brilliance and the curse of our bodies that it always finds a way to do what we want to do, but in the end, we are limiting ourselves if we don't take the time to care for our bodies and to reset them so they do work efficiently and in the ways we want them to work. So now let's dive in to those 3 underlying reasons why your core may not be working. So the first reason that your core doesn't turn on, these muscles turn on to protect our spine. Our spinal cord is really important if you think about all the nerves that come out and activate our muscles, our organs, etc. Right? So we want them to turn on. But once they turn on and they're in that contracted state, they actually inhibit your abs to work. So you might be in the gym doing some exercises that are supposed to target your abs, but you're actually getting these muscles to work more, and you're not actually getting your abs to work. And it could be frustrating if you don't know the difference. A lot of people will think they feel it in their abs, but it's actually their psoas. So this turns on for a myriad of reasons. And that's why it's very popularized on social media as like the culprit of everything. And it's really not. It's really like just a muscle that's helping us keep our spine healthy, and saving us when we're playing one more game. Like pickleball players will always play one more game and then they'll play 4. Or my hikers that they've set their mind that they're going to do an 8-10 mile hike and they have to get through the whole thing, right? Like, this is life. So when we're the juxtaposition of this muscle though is it's also really contracted when we sit for too long. So this is the psoas and it goes from the hip to the spine, and its accomplice is the QL, or the quadratus lumborum. Now, the QL really tightens when we're doing more working activity, walking, running, moving to and fro, because it's kind of a hip hiker and it kind of allows you to move more forward when your glutes and abs are not working. So generally, if we can reset those muscles, then we can get the abs to work. In fact, this is what inhibits my own abs from working occasionally. And how I know is I'll start to do an abdominal exercise, but my abs are like, they don't work, or they don't work in the full range. That's what I have observed. And so if I go do the reset for my psoas and I go back to the exercise, well, then I can do the full exercise. I feel it in the right places, and I can burn those abs without feeling the hip activating so much. So you just kind of need to know what your pattern is. Another pattern that happens in this area is when the hip needs more stability. So when the hip needs more stability, one of the big things that turns on is our TFL. And that's kind of on the side of our hip, and it attaches to our IT band. And I also see the inner thighs, adductor magnus, and those muscles activate and contract. And that throws the hip off, which then throws the core off, right? And so we need a certain length in our muscles that optimizes their contraction. And if they're too long, right, they have trouble contracting together, right? They're reaching, but they can't do it. It's really important to know your patterns that occur. And also I give people tests so that you test yourself to see exactly where you're limited that day or you're tight. And that way you don't waste time, right? You just do the thing and then you go back to whatever ab exercise you were working on, and you can get the most bang for your buck. The second underlying reason that your abs, your core are not turning on is your upper back. So this is less common, but it's often involved with people. They generally don't have just the hips, they have the upper back, or rather, if you have an upper back issue, you generally also have a hip issue. So a lot of times the hip issue is isolated, but the second one is generally an addition, a fun addition if you've done this for a really long time. If you're kind of slumped or have that hump in your back, or really if you just sink here, again, it alters the tension or the ability for your muscle to contract. And a lot of times when you say sit up, people will hinge from here. And that's the really interesting thing about these folks, is that we need to teach them how to actually move their upper back, because a lot of people lose that ability over time as we start to slump. Once I can teach them how to extend their upper back, move and articulate each spinal vertebrae, they notice, oh, well, now I can actually activate my core because I gave it a little stretch reflex, thinking beyond, oh, this exercise doesn't work, right? Like it says it's for my abs and I don't feel them, or they don't work, or they don't turn on. Now, the third reason is, of course, the coolest, because it has to do with the brain. So this is when our brain is no longer coordinating your abdominal activation with your movements. Okay, so these I find people that have been athletes since their youth. So they started compensating early, they got really good at it, and then their brain just changed the motor neuron pattern in their brain that they're no longer using their abs for those exercises. They're using the QL, they're using their psoas, they're really good at using alternative muscles. So with this, the fix is really fascinating, because you have to put an input into the system to kind of trick the wire, right? So if we think about ourselves as electrical, right? We have a certain electrical pattern that we've developed over time. So sometimes we have to add weird movements in to the abdominal exercise to kind of rewire or restart the circuit. And then once you rewire the circuit, it works. And sometimes you'll need that input every time you start. And then sometimes we'll need to change the input. But this is what happened with this person I saw this week. We were just doing a donkey kick, which is a glute or buttock exercise, strengthening exercise. And they couldn't stabilize the spine on all fours. So we had to put a little bit more of an input into their system so they could actually activate their abs. So I hope this is really empowering to you. It's not you or your body is off and weird and wrong, okay? It's that we just need to reset some things.